Hi Reddit. Before I start, quick thing. If you like raw relationship stories like this, you already know what to do. Because I wish someone had warned me how ugly love can sound when you're not in the room. My name is Caleb. I'm 28. My girlfriend, well, ex, was Sophie, 26. We lived together for almost a year. Together for a little over 2. And I'm posting this because I overheard her laughing at me. Not a normal joke. Not a couple's tease. I mean, cruel. Personal. Like she was describing a stranger she hated. And what messed me up wasn't just what she said. It was how comfortable she was saying it. Like it was a routine. Like she'd done it before. Here's the moment everything changed. Sophie thought I'd left for the gym. I didn't. I came back because I forgot my wallet. I walked in quietly, and I heard her voice from the kitchen. Soft at first. Then laughter. And then I heard her best friend's voice. A guy named Derek, 29. And Sophie said, "Honestly, he's perfect for me. He's easy." She laughed again. Then she said the line I still hear in my head. Like, he thinks he's the man of the house. It's adorable. My stomach dropped. Because I wasn't hearing a private vent. I was hearing a performance. Let me rewind because I know how Reddit works. People will ask, were there signs? Yes, but they weren't obvious until after. Sophie was the sweet type. The kind of woman who remembers your favorite snack. The kind who holds your hand in public. The kind who texts, "Drive safe," even when you're going 5 minutes away. That's why this felt insane. We met through friends. She was charming. Funny, a little blunt, but in a way that felt refreshing. And I wasn't naive. I've dated enough to know people have flaws. But Sophie didn't feel like she had flaws. She felt polished. Like she knew exactly how to act in every moment. If I had a stressful day, she would say the perfect line. If I got insecure, she'd reassure me before I even asked. If I pulled away, she'd pull me back in. At the time, I thought, wow, she gets me. Now I think she was studying me. And Derek was always around. Sophie called him her best friend. They'd known each other since college. He was funny, a little arrogant, but I didn't feel threatened. Because Sophie made it sound harmless. "He's basically my brother," she said. You already know where that sentence goes. So, back to that day. I stood in the hallway frozen. Sophie didn't know I was there. Derek didn't know either. And Sophie kept talking. She said, "I swear, if I act upset for like 10 minutes, he'll do anything. Dishes, groceries, apologize. It's like training a golden retriever." Derek laughed, like it was the funniest thing in the world. Then Sophie said, "And he's so proud of himself when he fixes it." Like, "Babe, you didn't fix anything. You just did what I wanted." My face got hot. Not just anger, humiliation, because I realized something. She wasn't just teasing me, she didn't respect me. Derek said, "So why are you even with him?" Sophie paused, like she was choosing words. Then she said, "Because he's stable, and he's convenient, and he's obsessed with me." Then, softer, "And honestly, I like being the one with power." I felt dizzy, because the Sophie I knew would never say that out loud, but she did. Because she thought I wasn't there. I stepped back quietly. I didn't storm in. I didn't confront her yet. I did the worst thing you can do in that moment. I listened longer, and I heard one more line that broke me. Sophie said, "I'm not scared of losing him. I'm scared of losing what he does for me." After that, I couldn't unhear it. Every sweet moment started looking different. When she hugged me after an argument, I thought, is this love or is this control? When she said, "I'm proud of you," I wondered, proud like a partner or proud like a handler? And then I started remembering older moments, little things I'd brushed off, like how Sophie would pick fights before seeing my friends. So I'd cancel plans to make it right. like how she'd get moody when I talked about promotions at work. Then later she'd say, "I just miss you," like how Derek would text her during our dates and she'd smile at her phone. And if I asked who it was, she'd say, "Relax." I also realized something worse. Derek wasn't just around. He was a teammate. I tested it. Not in some toxic way, just observation. One night I told Sophie I was going out with my friend Marco. I kept it casual. Sophie smiled and said, "Have fun." But 20 minutes later she texted, "Actually, I don't feel well." Classic. I said, "Do you want me to come back?" She replied instantly, "Yes," so I turned around. When I got home, Sophie was fine, sitting on the couch watching TikToks. She smiled like nothing happened, and I saw Derek's name on her lock screen. A message preview. "Lowell, you got him to turn around?" My hands went cold. I know this is where people judge me, but yeah, I checked her phone later, not proud. But at that point, my reality felt broken. I didn't go digging through old photos. I searched Caleb, and I found a muted group chat. Name, project, husband material. I wish I was kidding. Members, Sophie, Derek, and Sophie's friend Ava, 26. The chat was a playbook. Screenshots of my texts, voice notes analyzing my reactions. Little lessons learned. Sophie had posted, "Update. If I go quiet and look disappointed, he spirals and over-explains. Use this when he pushes back." Ava replied, "LOL men are so easy." Derek replied, "Teach him to pay for the vacation next." Then Sophie posted a screenshot of me saying, "I'm sorry, I'll do better." And she wrote, "See, he's addicted to fixing things. Just give him a problem." I felt sick, because it wasn't one bad joke. It was a system. And then I saw a message from Derek that changed everything. He wrote, "Did you tell him the real reason you keep him?" Sophie replied, "Not yet, but he'd stay anyway." Derek, "Yeah, because he thinks you're out of his league." Sophie, "Exactly." My chest tightened, because I realized the truth. She didn't love me, she managed me. I confronted her that night. I didn't yell, I didn't throw her phone. I just put it on the table and said, "I saw the group chat." Sophie's face went blank. Then she did something wild. She laughed, not nervous laughter, real laughter like I'd told a joke. She said, "You went through my phone?" I said, "Sophie, you called me a project." She shrugged. "It's just jokes. You're being dramatic." I felt my voice shake. "You compared me to a dog." She smiled like she was calming a child. "Babe, you're taking it too seriously." Then she pulled the ultimate move. She started crying. Instantly, perfectly, she said, "I can't believe you don't trust me, after everything I've done for you." And in that moment, I heard her voice from the kitchen again. "I like being the one with power." It clicked. The tears weren't emotion. They were strategy. I said something I'd never said to her before. "Stop." Sophie froze. Like she wasn't used to that word. I continued, "You don't get to flip this. You humiliated me. You coached my relationship like it was a game. And Derek..." Sophie's eyes flashed. "Don't bring Derek into this." That's when I knew. There was more. "Because why protect him?" I said. "Is Derek more important than me?" Sophie's silence answered. Then she said quietly, "You're being insecure." And I said, "No, I'm being awake." I left that night, slept on Marco's couch, and Sophie texted me like a different person. First message, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." Second message, "You violated my privacy." Third, "Derek thinks you're overreacting." Fourth, "If you leave, you're proving you never loved me." I stared at that last one for a long time, because it was the most honest thing she'd said. She didn't ask me to stay because she loved me. She asked me to stay because leaving would ruin her story. I broke up with her the next day. I didn't do it with rage. I did it with clarity. Sophie didn't beg the way I expected. She got cold. She said, "Good luck finding someone like me." And for a second, that worked. For a second, I felt panic. Then I remembered the chat name, Project Husband Material, and I realized what someone like her actually meant. Someone who pretends love is real until you're useful. I moved out within a week, and here's the darkest part. 2 weeks later, Derek messaged me, not an apology. He wrote, "You're making her really sad. You should talk to her." I blocked him, because I finally understood. They weren't a couple. They were a team, and I was the game. No happy ending. But I learned this. If someone laughs at you when you're not there, that's who they really are. Update. Guys, there's an update. I didn't expect to ever post again after the last part. I thought the worst was over. I thought once I moved out and blocked Sophie and Derek, the story would end naturally. It didn't. What happened next was the kind of thing that makes you realize you weren't dating a person. You were dating a plan. So here's what happened. 2 days after I posted, my phone started blowing up. Not from Sophie, not directly, from people I haven't spoken to in months. My cousin texted, "Hey, are you okay? I saw something about you." Then Marco called me and said, "Bro, did you just go viral on TikTok?" I laughed at first, like, no way, that's not real. Then he sent me the link. It was a video, a Storytime style video, with subtitles, sad music, a crying selfie angle, and it was Sophie. She had posted a My Truth video, and she was telling my story, but flipped. In her version, I was the manipulative one. I was the controlling boyfriend. I was the emotionally unstable guy who isolated her from her friends. And the worst part? She used real details, specific details. Our apartment layout, the timeline of our fights, even my job field. So it sounded believable. It sounded like she was the victim, and people were eating it up. The comments were insane. Girl run. Classic narcissist. Men like that are dangerous. You're so brave. And Derek was in the comments, of course. He wrote, "Proud of you for speaking out." Proud. Like they were launching a product. I felt sick. Because suddenly, this wasn't just a breakup. This was a public smear campaign. And I knew why. Because if Sophie could control the narrative, she could keep control of me without ever speaking to me again. And she could punish me for leaving. I kept watching. I shouldn't have, but I did. Then Sophie said something that made my stomach drop. She looked into the camera and said, and the scariest part is, he went through my phone, he found private messages, and after that, I didn't feel safe in my own home. Reddit. That was my exact fear. That she would weaponize the one thing I did wrong, checking her phone, and make it the headline. Not the group chat, not the manipulation, not the humiliation. Just, he invaded my privacy. And it worked. Because people here went through my phone and their brains shut off. They don't ask what was in it. They don't ask why someone would be pushed that far. They just judge. And Sophie knew that. That's why she was so calm. She wasn't telling a story. She was building a case. The next morning, I got an email at work. From an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, concerned. Inside was a paragraph written like a professional complaint. It said, "I'm reaching out because I'm worried about Caleb's behavior. He has shown patterns of emotional instability and boundary violations. I believe he may be unsafe around women." No name, no signature. Just a threat disguised as concern. My hands started sweating, because that wasn't random. That was Sophie's style, polite, clean, toxic. I went straight to HR. I told them I was being harassed by an ex. I showed them screenshots from before. I showed them the TikTok. HR was careful, neutral. They didn't accuse me of anything. but I could tell something changed, not in their words, in their caution. And that's what Sophie wanted. Not to get me fired instantly, just to plant doubt, to make me feel watched, to make me feel like any wrong move could ruin me. That night, Marco came over. He looked pissed. He said, "Dude, I found Derek's Reddit account." I laughed. I didn't believe him. Marco showed me. It was an account with years of comments, and there it was. A post from months ago in some relationship subreddit. Title was something like, "Best way to keep a guy emotionally dependent." And the comments? It was basically a manual. Stuff like, reward and withdraw. Keep him chasing. Use tears when needed. Make him feel lucky. I stared at it, because it sounded exactly like Sophie. Then Marco scrolled down to a comment Derek made that hit me like a brick. He wrote, "Works even better if she keeps a group chat. You can coach her live." Coach her, like I was a game. Like my relationship was a strategy session. I sat there in silence for a long time, because it confirmed my biggest fear. This wasn't just Sophie being cruel. This was Sophie and Derek doing this together. On purpose. For fun, I made a decision. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a war. I just wanted my life back. So, I did the only smart thing. I stopped talking to Sophie entirely. I stopped watching her posts. I documented everything. Screenshots, dates, times. I filed a report for harassment. Not because I thought the police would swoop in, but because I needed a paper trail. And then I did something that felt humiliating. I warned my close friends and family. I said, "Hey, if you see stuff online about me, it's not true. I'm dealing with a situation. Please don't engage." That message alone hurt my pride, because it felt like I was defending myself against a rumor. But it also saved me, because when Sophie's story spread, some people believed her. But the people who mattered to me called and asked first. And then, Sophie messaged me again. After weeks of silence, Sophie finally broke the rule. Not with a "I miss you," not with an apology. She sent one sentence. "You could have had everything, but you had to ruin it." That's when I realized something that terrified me. Sophie never once said, "I'm sorry for hurting you." She only cared that I stopped being useful. She didn't miss me, she missed control. And if you're wondering why I'm posting this update, it's because that message came with a screenshot. A screenshot of my LinkedIn profile, with a little heart emoji drawn on it. Like a joke, like a warning. Like she was saying, "I can still see you." So, yeah, that's the update. I'm not going back. I'm not engaging. But I'm also not pretending it's over. Because when someone treats love like a game, they don't always stop playing just because you walked away. Okay, update #2. I honestly didn't want to post again, because every time I talk about this, it feels like I'm giving Sophie and Derek attention. But what happened this week wasn't just drama. It crossed into scary, and I need to put it somewhere outside my head. So, here we go. 1. She went through my friends first. It started small. My friend Marco texted me, "Bro, Sophie just followed my girlfriend on Instagram." That might not sound like a big deal, but Sophie never cared about Marco's girlfriend. She didn't even like her. Then my cousin messaged, "Your exa just liked 3 of my photos from 2019. Is she okay?" Then my mom called me, nervous. She said, "Caleb, Sophie sent me a long message." My stomach dropped, because I already knew what kind of message it was going to be. The concerned message, the sweet poison. My mom read it to me. Sophie wrote something like, "Hi, Mrs. Thompson, I hope you're well. I'm not trying to cause trouble, but I'm really worried about Caleb. He's been spiraling. He's been unstable. I'm scared for him. If he reaches out, please encourage him to get help." It was written perfectly. No insults, no obvious lies. Just a narrative. The narrative. And I could hear Sophie's voice behind the words. Not love. Control. My mom asked quietly, "Is any of that true?" And that question hurt more than anything Sophie said, because it proved what Sophie wanted: to plant doubt, to make people look at me differently. 2 days later, I got an email from a mutual friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in forever. Subject line, "Just checking in." Inside, "Hey man, Sophie is really worried. She says she misses you. Maybe you two should talk in person. Closure might help." Closure. That word is a weapon, because it makes you feel like you're the immature one if you don't engage. But I noticed something. The email was weirdly formal, no slang, no personal detail. It didn't sound like that person. So, Marco did something I didn't even ask him to do. He checked the email header, and it wasn't from that person's usual email. It was a brand new address, meaning someone was impersonating them. Sophie had made a fake bridge to lure me in. A trap disguised as peace. Then came the part that turned my blood cold. I was leaving a grocery store near my place. It was a normal Tuesday, rainy, nothing special. I pushed my cart out, and I heard a voice behind me. "Caleb, hey." I turned. It was Derek, standing there like it was the most normal thing in the world, smiling. He looked calm, comfortable, like he had rehearsed this. I didn't say anything at first. He stepped closer and said, "Can we talk like men?" That line made me want to laugh because it was so cliché. But I didn't laugh. I said no. Derek held his hands up like I was being aggressive. "Relax," he said. "I'm not here to fight. Sophie is really struggling." There it was again. "The Sophie is suffering story," I said. "Not my problem." Derek's smile tightened. He leaned in slightly and said, "You know, you made this worse, right?" I stared at him. He continued quieter. "She didn't want to do the whole internet thing, but you forced her hand." Forced her hand. Like she's a victim of her own actions. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. He said, "You should have just played your role." My role? I felt my chest tighten. I said, "Back up." Derek smiled again. Not friendly, more like amused. Then he said, "Just so you know, she kept receipts." Receipts? That word hit like a threat. Then he walked away like nothing happened. Like I was the crazy one for feeling unsafe. I stood there in the rain, shaking. Because Derek didn't run into me, he found me. That night, Sophie texted me. First time in a while. One sentence. "You didn't have to embarrass Derek." My heart sank. Because it confirmed everything. Derek reported back to her instantly. They were still coordinated. Still a team. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot. I added it to my folder. And I did something I should have done earlier. I changed my routine. Different gym time, different grocery store, different route home. I hated doing that. I hated that she still had influence over my life. But safety matters more than pride. 2 days after that, one of my friends, someone I trusted, called me. He sounded awkward. He said, "Hey, I just want to ask you something straight up." I said, "Sure." He goes, "Sophie told my girlfriend you hit her." I swear my brain stopped. I said, "What?" He said, "She said you got angry. You grabbed her wrist, you scared her, and she didn't want to tell anyone." My vision went blurry, because that wasn't just a smear, that was a crime accusation. And Sophie was careful. She didn't post it publicly, she whispered it privately, because private whispers spread faster than public posts, and they're harder to fight. I asked, "Do you believe her?" There was a pause. Then he said, "I don't know what to believe. That was the goal. Not to prove I did it, just to make people unsure, just to poison trust." I told him calmly, "I have screenshots, I have documentation, and I'm filing reports. Please don't pass rumors around." He said, "Okay," but I could hear it. The doubt was already planted. I'm not going to write legal advice here. I'm just telling you what I did in my situation. I stopped trying to win the story. I stopped trying to defend myself to everyone. I focused on documenting. I also told my closest circle one clear sentence. If you hear anything about me from Sophie or Derek, bring it to me directly. Don't engage, don't argue, don't reply. And then I did the hardest thing. I accepted that some people would believe her. Not because she's right, but because it's easier. It's easier to believe a clean victim story than a messy truth about manipulation. Here's the last thing, the part that made me realize who she really is. Last night, Sophie posted again. Not a crying video, a smiling one. She was out at a bar, laughing and dancing. Caption, "Protect your peace," and in the background, barely visible, was Derek. Just standing there, watching, like a manager, like a coach, and I realized something that hit me like a truck. Sophie isn't heartbroken. She's furious. Because I stopped being controllable. And for someone like her, that's the worst insult. Not leaving, not exposing, not blocking, just being out of reach. So yeah, that's where it is now. I'm not going back, I'm not engaging, I'm just protecting my life. Because when someone treats love like a game, they don't always stop playing. Sometimes, they just change the rules.